when we're talking about these abusive situations. I think that the internet has a very bad habit of generalizing abuse. Um, has a very bad habit of generalizing DV or any type of like violent type of situation to where you look at all of these situations and you group them together, right? And the best way for me to explain it is I feel like everyone looks at these situations with the same pair of glasses on. And at the end of the day, there's so much nuance in DV period that like it's not it is the new norm, but I think it's become the new norm only because we're seeing like so much of it. And so people feel like it's so black and white. Like a victim looks like this and the aggressor looks like this. So I'm going to use this as an example, right? This is the best way for me to explain it. Hey, Janai. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Please stay as long as you can. Everything is so desensitized. Exactly. So I'm following this whole Diddy case right now. Okay. Because I'm very interested in it. And I fell down a Diddy rabbit hole like over a year ago. So I've been knew the feds was coming for him. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not surprised. So I've been following it every day, hearing this testimony and figuring out what's going on in court. And Cassie, his like long-term off and on girlfriend, or one of them, she was like the first one to testify. And basically Cassie, even before the situation happened, right, or the trial started, Cassie was like, he beat my ass, right? She basically said that he beat my ass, did a whole bunch of other shit. Then we seen a video in 4K of Diddy doing just that, right? So now we're like, okay, Cassie is the victim and Diddy is the aggressor. Now Cassie gets on the stand and they ask her, like, sometimes did you hit him back? And she said, yeah, sometimes I did fight back, right? So now, after Cassie testifying that, now people are like, well, look, she hit him back, so she's not a victim. She hit him back sometimes, so she's not a victim. Two things can happen at once, right? Especially when you understand the duality with DV specifically, in those type of relationships and the dynamics and all the nuance within their relationship alone. It's a very unique situation, but people forget that two things can happen at once. And if you think that there's any such thing as a perfect victim, you're wrong. They don't exist. So if you think that for a victim to be a victim, she just had to sit there and take it. And there was never going to be a situation where she was going to fight back or going to try to defend herself. You just think she's going to, thank you, Janai. Thank you. You're so sweet. If you think that a perfect victim is just supposed to be like, not do anything wrong, I'm just supposed to take it and not do nothing else. That doesn't happen. That rarely, if ever, happens. And a lot of people feel like that is what is supposed to occur. So that's one example of nuance, right? She is a victim, and sometimes she didn't do, some great things either, right? Doesn't make her any less of a victim. Diddy, right? Of course, through his defense and some other testimony, Cassie testified some positive things about him. There were a lot of people on the stand. He wasn't, some people didn't portray him to be just a complete monster. Some people had nice things to say about him, right? They had a lot of bad things to say, a lot of bad things, but they had some nice things to say about him too. Now people are like, oh, well, look, he did this good thing, so he's not guilty. Well, that's not That's not the case either. It's not one or the other. It can very much so be both, right? So even with an aggressor, a lot of the times, yes, they're probably abusive or, violent or whatever, but sometimes they also have a good side to them too. Sometimes they're charming, sometimes they're kind, sometimes they're funny, they have positive traits. They can still be kind of a bad person or do bad things, but can also display certain acts of kindness. They can be charismatic. It doesn't mean just because some of the people he worked with or has been with had certain good times with them doesn't mean that he's not guilty of some of the things that he's on trial for, right? So this whole situation with his trial alone is just like the best example right now of like how people do not understand duality. They do not understand nuance. They don't understand two things can happen at the same time. Two things can be true at once. You have to do what you have to do while being in a situation like that. I feel like Diddy's good acts had motives behind them. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, I'm gonna just kind of give my quick opinion on the Diddy thing really quick, because I've been following it very closely. Truthfully, I'm gonna admit my bias. I think that Diddy is a monster, and I think that he has committed a lot of crimes. He has done a lot of bad things, and I think he does deserve some time. And I think his pockets deserve to be ran dry, and I want to see him gone. I want to see him locked up. I'm admitting my bias simply based off a lot of the things that have been alleged over the years by people he has worked with and been involved with romantically or whatever. I don't think all of these people are lying on you. And he's not the only one. Diddy is probably the biggest fish they're going to get. So Bill Cosby, the R. Kellys, you think they the only niggas doing the shit that they're the only ones getting caught? But there's plenty more in the industry. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, because that's how these people get away with shit like this. Because people, push it aside as, it's a conspiracy. That's why he got away with this stuff for decades, right? So that's my personal bias regarding the situation. Based off what, they're charging him for, all the stuff they're charging him for, I will say the one thing that I'm noticing in the trial is it's very hard to prove that these women were forced to do certain things or that they were coerced. And it's just a very it's so I'm seeing how it's so hard to like prove certain things in court, and I totally am starting to understand why victims just don't come forward, because if you just don't have that shit in 4K, or if there's ways for them to poke holes and twist things, it's just so hard. I do think that the case is interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to ramble about it because I'm sure as hell can, and it's going on for a couple of more weeks. But yeah, so that is kind of my whole spiel about generalizing DV. Stop doing it. Not all of these situations are the same. Not all of these situations look the same. Abuse is not, it's not a generalized thing. It's not assigned to a gender. It's not assigned to a race. It's not assigned to an age. And just because you personally you have a personal bias towards these things doesn't mean you should apply it to all of these situations. So if you're a person that feels like, you know what, well, sometimes people lie, or you maybe have been lied on. Somebody said, hey, you did this to me, and they were lying, right? So now when it comes to these situations, you're on defense mode, kind of like, You're always going to intentionally poke holes in a victim's story because you personally have a bias towards the possibility of them lying. Guess what? That is a possibility. People do lie, but it's also not fair for you to intentionally go and poke holes into every victim's story that comes out. Because if you come out and say, hey, somebody did this to me, you want somebody to believe you. So don't lean too much on your bias with all of these situations. Look at it, look at the facts, assess it, and make your assessment. But don't be like, oh, well, sometimes people lie, so anyone who comes out as a victim is lying, or I'm going to intentionally try to poke holes in their story or to figure out how they possibly could be lying. That's not fair. That's not fair. It's not fair. All of these situations are different. They're not all going to look the same. Not everybody's going to handle things how you think they should handle them. So, yeah. I'm already rambling a lot. So, I'm going to move on to the next topic. So, kind of still under the DDG and Halle thing. You see how you see how I'm not speaking directly on DDG and Halle, like you see how many conversations when you just think about these all this drama that's all over the blogs. When you just try to think and assess the situation for what it is in a certain type of way and view all angles and perspectives, there's so many different conversations you can have from it that are a lot more appropriate for us as the public who don't know these people to have.